Hey folks, it's CitizenWolf here. Just a quick message before we actually get into the main part of the podcast. I would like to apologise for the slight audio discrepancy with Clear Vision's audio track for the first 10 minutes or so. It sounds like, unfortunately, it was an issue that I didn't pick up in the testing phase when he sent across the test audio recording before we actually started recording the podcast. It might have been due to an issue with his audio gain not set quite right, or some other filter issue that I missed, unfortunately. Not to worry, it sounds perfectly fine, it just sounds a little bit fuzzy for the first 10 minutes or so. It's not a major thing, I just wanted to point that out. It's just a little bit annoying, but just wanted to point that out, guys. Good evening, listeners, and welcome back to the CitizenWolf audio podcast. This is episode 8 you're currently listening to. And I think it's going to be a rather brilliant episode, of course. Today I've got my special guest, Clear Vision. Of course, he is artist in the MLP fandom and Motorsport fandom, like the two crossover worlds put together. I promise not to go too hard on the Top Gear and car memes throughout, but I can't promise everything. Hey, how's it going, Clear?
I'm doing pretty good today. Thanks for asking, and thanks for inviting me.
I'm actually amazed that you actually decided to agree to come onto the podcast. I thought, like, when you actually followed me on Twitter, I literally thought, like, he must have made us some sort of mistake, of course. And then that's what I generally thought. Like, I thought, like, you must have, like, oh, why is he following me for? Like, why would he want to follow me on Twitter? But so I took the opportunity, and thank you very much for coming on to the show. It's very much appreciated. So this is going to be a very, I suppose, motorsports sort of theme sort of episode, if you like. So if you're not into motorsport or cars or British people, I suppose you might not like this episode very much. So first of all, how did your interest in racing and motorsport actually start? I think that's the best question to start off with. Like, how did your interest in cars and motorsport actually begin? Was it from a very young age?
From a very young age with Gran Turismo, that's where it all began. I played Gran Turismo 3 when I was like 5 years old, give or take. And then later on in life I got a chance to get into karting once my parents realised that I was spending a lot of time doing racing games. I just thought, let's see how he does in real life. And although I didn't get that far, it still left me with a lot of wonderful memories.
So you were basically really in. Was that the PlayStation 2? I can't remember now. Was that PlayStation 1? I can't remember now. Gran Turismo 3, was it?
Gran Turismo 3 was on PlayStation 2. Gran Turismo 3 and 4. Gran Turismo 5 and 6 was on PlayStation 3. And then Gran Turismo Sport and 7 on PS4 and 5. Although I don't have a PlayStation 4 or 5. I play exclusively on PC now.
What was it that appealed you most about Gran Turismo? Was it the amount of like cars available, or was it just like, what is it about racing that appeals most to you?
When things first started, it was probably just like the selection of cars and also the attention to detail at the time. I remember Gran Turismo 3 and 4 having like really good graphics for the time. It's like that, along with having a lot of races to do, it kind of just kept me occupied. And I suppose later on in life, what kept me interested was the fact that there's a lot of repetition in motorsport, being consistent, hitting your marks. And although I don't like when things get too repetitive, I do find myself being good at tasks that require some degree of repetition and also being consistent. And also the fact that I kind of became semi-competent as well. So it kind of hooked me in.
So was it like the time trial aspect that you enjoyed a lot about it, or was it just generally all the things put together?
I'm honestly not much of a hot lapping or time trial person. I normally prefer like side-by-side racing.
Like one-on-ones with the other drivers?
It doesn't necessarily have to be one-on-one. There might be another driver in the mix.
So, going back to the PS2 days, about 2003, 2004?
2001 for Gran Turismo 3 and 2005 for Gran Turismo 4. I'd say 4 is my favourite because of the amount of content, but I also liked some aspects of Gran Turismo 5 and Gran Turismo 6. There was improvements, but it just seemed a bit more bland from what I can remember.
Was it just Gran Turismo games that you're interested in, or did you actually play any of the other racing sims like Formula One?
Yeah, I did expand out, so it wasn't entirely Gran Turismo. Played a couple of the Codemasters F1 games, although were not the most realistic things. And then later on, I briefly tried iRacing, and nowadays I'm playing Assetto Corsa, a little bit of ACC as well, a little bit of Automobilista 2, and a couple of other sims that I like to play.
The earliest one I played, I'm trying to remember, going back to a little bit later than PS2, I started with 360, I think. Forza 3 or 4, I think it was. I think it was 3, actually. 3, you can be as involved as you want. You can change all the gear ratios, and if you want to make it more advanced and do everything, put everything to manual, you can do. Or if you can put everything to automatic, if you're not so into the diving into the nitty gritty sort of things. Before that, probably the racing game I played the most, Need for Speed Underground 2. You're probably going to laugh at me. That was just going back to the GameCube days. But
No, I remember Underground too. I also enjoyed my fair share of Need for Speed games.
What was the first Need for Speed one that you actually played? Then was it Underground or was it like earlier than that?
I think the first one I played was Underground 2, and then Most Wanted, and then Pro Street.
Did you prefer the more racing sims over arcade, or do you play a bit of everything in racing?
A little bit of everything, I'd say. It's not just realistic stuff. I can appreciate it all, you know.
I bet you've got you've got the full setup with the steering wheel and everything like that on the PC. Is that the sort of setup that you've got at the moment?
Yep, I've even shared it on Twitter at one point.
With the multiple monitors and the big steering wheel in the middle.
Yep.
You'd never go back to like using a controller. You'd always prefer to use a full steering wheel and pedals.
It's mostly dependent on the game, I suppose. If there's any sort of physics that are very arcade-ish, then having a wheel doesn't have any sort of benefit. Forza is kind of in the middle. I prefer a wheel, but it's also playable on a controller. It used to be the other way around, but I decided to try Forza with a wheel, and now that I've gotten used to it, I prefer it, even though the wheel support isn't the best.
I've heard Forza Horizon's any good. Is that any good? That's like the open worldy one. Is that another good one to try?
If you want something that's a bit more laid back, although there is some sort of competitive stuff you could do, it's not something that I personally take that seriously, because the quality of racing, especially online, is much lower. Everyone's ramming you because there's no consequence. Although time trials can be quite enjoyable, there are some circuit layouts that I quite like in Horizon 4 and 5.
Can you still get Forza Motorsport on Steam, or is that only on consoles? I haven't really kept up with it, to be brutally honest with you.
In terms of Steam, you can only get Horizon 4 and 5. The rest would have been on the Microsoft store, but you can't buy Forza 7 on PC anymore. Yeah, we're delisted Horizon 3 and also Motorsport 7.
It's still annoying for the consumers, isn't it? Though, if you've missed your chance to play it, you don't ever get to play it. But yeah, I can understand why it does happen. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Let's move on to the art aspects of things then for a little while. When did you actually start making art? Was it about the same time you were first interested in actually in motorsport, or was it a little bit after that? Was it?
I started making art in 2010, I believe, when it was just something for fun. I was mostly just drawing cars just to pass the time. I did that for a few years.
So you were a traditional artist before you started doing digital art?
That's correct, yes.
So did you move on to digital art pretty quickly, or was it more of a gradual process?
What happened was that I took a 2 year hiatus from art in like 2017, no 2016, around that time. And then when I came back, I got straight into digital because I wanted to try my hand at art again, but I wanted to mix it up this time and see what I could do with a tablet.
Do you prefer making digital art over traditional art?
I'd say on the whole, yes, but at the same time, I haven't done any sort of traditional art in years, so I couldn't really tell you for sure.
So, have you ever considered like maybe like just for the just to see what happens? Maybe do another traditional piece just to see how your skills have changed or altered.
Now that you mention it, that could be a possibility. That could be something that could be quite fun and different, and it's always good to try different things because, at least for me, I'm quite susceptible to artistic burnout.
Has that happened before? Is that like a common problem for you?
It's a recent problem. I've never had problems with it before. It's only something that's kind of popped up in the last year or so.
And what would you say is what was the main issue of that? Was it is it more to do with your your spending you're spending too much time on a piece, or like you ran out of ideas? What's the main issue behind that? Would you say?
I'd say it's mostly just down to me running out of steam, but never out of ideas. I have loads of ideas. Some of them are written down, some of them I just have a mental note of, and I don't think I'll have any problems with running out of ideas anytime soon. It's just hard, you know. And I've definitely vented my frustrations a little bit more recently. Although I'm a person who likes to solve problems rather than complaining about it. I just don't have a solution for my current problems, and that's probably why I'm feeling burnt out. But it could be a multitude of things.
So what are you looking at to try and combat that problem? Are you trying to change your approach, or is it a case of deciding maybe to do something different, or is it something else?
Maybe it would be time to try a different approach, but I'm not sure how I could go about doing that exactly. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with what I'm doing, but at the same time, I'm not happy that I'm getting a lot of inconsistent results. Sometimes it's not your fault, sometimes it's just the algorithm didn't choose you that day, or people might have been looking at something else. It could be anything really, and that's the frustrating part is that you never have a clear. Um, the problem is never really clear.
Nor is the solution to tackle it, would you say?
Yes, I'd agree with that.
When did you get into when did you get interested in MLP? You don't usually put motorsport and MLP together, but did you get interested in the show, or was it something different, or how did that come about?
I did get interested into the show actually. In terms of how I discovered it, I literally just found it by accident when I was looking for something else. But I decided to stick around because I don't remember what episode it was, but I found it interesting, and from there I just decided to carry on watching, and the rest is history.
So that like you, as you got interested in the show, you decided to combine motorsport and MLP, and that's how you that's I think that's how your what your art is most famous for. You combine like a really elaborate sports car or whatever it is directly beneath the character. So the show itself was it early on into the run that you got into it, or was it a little bit later on?
I think it was season 2 or 3, so pretty early on.
So what was it like you were looking? So how did you stumble upon it by accident? Was it were you looking for like art materials or influences, and you just stumbled across it by accident?
No, I was like searching for like a TV channel. I was scrolling through and then I came across MLP and then I decided to I don't know what it was, but it just caught my attention. So it wasn't something that I was actively seeking out. But once I have watched it, I was actively seeking it out and I continued to watch it for a couple of seasons. I think I stopped watching in season 6 or 7. I don't remember. It's been a while, but once I decided to get back into art, I decided to try doing MLP stuff.
And combine those two things together.
Initially, that wasn't my plan. Funnily enough, it was kind of just I first started just to try it out, and then I was like, maybe I'll draw a car one day. And then I had the thought of, oh, why don't I combine the two? And I did a couple of drawings with cars and MLP characters. My first one was with Cloud Chaser. It was a Need for Speed Pro Street crossover. The second one I did was a Gran Turismo crossover with the Castrol Tom Supra in the Japanese GT500. And then I kind of carried on doing cars that people would recognize from either games or motorsport. I think the next one I did after that was Ken Block's Ford Fiesta. And then after that, I did the Mazda 787B, which you probably would recognize either from Forza or Gran Turismo. And after I did a couple, I decided to expand and try different cars on occasion. I definitely have like a motorsport focus, but there are other things that I find interesting about cars.
So what would you say what would you say is your favourite car pin-up piece then that you've done? Would it be one of the commissions or would it be one of your more recent works?
I'd personally say it's a tie between the Fallout Equestria one and the Scootaloo one with the Racing Point RP20 F1 car.
So what's the process like? So do you pick a car first, or do you pick the pony first, then match it up with a car that you think will match that character? How do you go about picking? How do you go about doing that?
Sometimes it can go either way. Sometimes I can pick the car first. Sometimes I can pick the character first. Although if I had to say which one I start with more often, I'd probably pick the character first.
So you pick the character first, and then you go by the personality, and you think, oh, I'm going to pick a. Then you pick the car to suit.
Yeah, unless I have the only exception to that is if unless I have a specific car in mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes you start off with the car in mind, and then you pick the pony, and then it can be vice versa.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
With the Fallout piece, I picked the characters first, and with the Scooter piece, I picked the car first.
Those are both really, really good pieces. How long on average does it take you to, like an average car pin-up? I can imagine they take a very long time to put together. A couple of 100 hours a piece? Would it be even longer than that?
100 hours, 150 maybe. Although sometimes I get it done a little bit quicker, but I'd say 100 hours plus or minus 25 is a good estimate.
Give or take, yeah. So what would you say? So if, for example, you received a car pin-up commission, do you pick? Does the commissioner pick the car, or do you make suggestions based on the pony? What's the process for that?
I don't normally make car suggestions. It's whether the commissioner wants. Like I'll ask them to come to me with like a car in mind, and then I'll ask them for as many references of that car as possible, or at least something similar, or something that's on the same platform. I'll ask for a side view of the car if possible, or some sort of car blueprint. And although that's not necessary, it's extremely helpful because it can help me to better understand the proportions of a car. And if it's a side view, I can also like take measurements.
Ideally, you need like some sort of blueprint to get the scale and the shape of the car. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the first step. Gathering references and also doing any sort of research around the car as well, if it's something that has a lot of complexity to it, I suppose. And it's also how I replicate the smaller details as well. It's nothing too in depth, it's just like the basic things. Like I might look up what tires the car has, and then I'll put that branding on the tire and you can see it. I'll look up dimensions so I can roughly gauge how big it should be compared to the character, but I can also I've reached a point where I can also eyeball it if I'm familiar.
Are a lot of the blueprints available online for specific cars, or are these a bit more difficult to come across, or does it depend on the manufacturer, I guess?
It depends on the car, which is not a helpful answer. But if there isn't like reference photos that I can get online, that's helpful. Like that, there are other options. For example, if the car's in Forza, then I can just load it up and uh, get it. If I don't already have it, then boot up photo mode and then put the camera exactly where I want it, so I can put it on the side to get my side view, put it on the front to get the front view. And as long as you like flatten the image so that you have minimal distortion, you can use it to also like take measurements relative to the wheelbase.
Yeah, so completely flat, non-perspective profile view. Yeah, understand that. Yeah.
It's not necessary, but it just makes things a lot easier.
Do you also like use like stuff like Haynes manuals and stuff like that for more intricate bits and pieces, or is it just generally more online materials that you use?
Yeah, just online materials. And if it's not something that's completely obscure, then there'll usually be like a lot of reference photos available.
So, do you tend to only favour the more the more glamorous cars, or would you ever consider doing something that's a little bit more bit more down to earth, or something like that?
I mean, I've already done a couple of more normal cars for commissions. I've done a Ford Crown Victoria. I've done a Ford F350. I don't think I've done anything else other than those two that's a bit more down to earth, as you say. But I have that option available. It's not. But I suppose the reason why I focus on more exotic stuff is because it's just more interesting, and it probably also shows off my technical drawing skills a lot better because I'm looking to not only show that I can draw cars, but I also want to stand out even against other people who do it as well, right?
In the motorsport space.
I'd say like it's the motorsport focus is just another differentiator, if that makes sense. So like I draw cars, but then on top of that, I also have a focus on motorsport and exotics.
If, for example, you got an idiot like me who wanted to commission something at some point, would you do something like a really terrible car that you know that's absolutely terrible?
So I suppose I could also do that. I probably won't be able to like do cars that are like really damaged because at that point it's not. It'll be just hard to recreate that in a way that's convincing, I suppose. Like you could have a couple of dents, you could have rust, you could have uh, shattered windows if you want, but any sort of major deformation to the car would be a bit difficult.
You got to try and make your art eye catching, I guess, and you got to think more carefully about like the what characters are going to be there and what sort of car and how you want to represent it. I think that's probably the most important thing with pin-ups, I guess. I think that makes sense.
Yep. The exotic stuff definitely gets more attention, so that's also a plus.
What sort of brand of cars are the more? Would you say like a specific brand of car is more difficult to draw than others, or anything that stands out in that particular way?
I wouldn't say like any particular brand of cars. Like I've manufacturers definitely have certain design cues and elements, but it's not the brand of the car, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of just literally depends on the vehicle itself. Uh, the Formula One drawing, for example, that was very complicated. It was a pain to get the car to look right. I definitely spent 200 hours on that, which is kind of
Man.
really bonkers to think about. But
Was that for a commission, or was that like just a personal piece?
no, that was a personal piece.
That's a very long time to spend on a piece. But like if it's going really well, then like you're willing to put the work in to make it right. Just because the shape was really difficult, you had to spend a lot more time trying to get it right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of elements on the cars as well. They've simplified it for this year. have made the bodywork more simple for closer racing. But the 2020 cars, 29, I can speak 2019 cars. There we
Yeah.
go. Uh, had very complex bodywork in particular. You had barge boards, you have a lot of elements on the diffuser. The front wing was also quite complex as well. The rear wing has a lot of edges, and yeah, it all just adds up.
So what software do you use to actually draw your pieces? Do you use things like do you use Photoshop or do you use something else to make your drawings?
Nowadays, I use Clip Studio Paint, but in the past, when I first started, I started with Metabang Paint Pro.
Can't say I've heard of that one. Is it easy? Is it an easy bit of software to use, or is it something that you have to spend a bit of time to actually learn?
I'd say for me, it was quite easy to learn the basics, but then there's certain things that required a bit more time to understand. I suppose, like learning how to use the perspective rulers effectively, that took a little bit of time, but I was able to get used to it fairly quickly. I suppose learning how the brushes in Clip Studio work compared to Metabang Paint Pro when I first switched over. But now I'm quite happy with Clip Studio, and I don't really see any reason to switch to anything else at the time being.
Is that a paid bit of software? Is that like a free software that anybody can download and learn how to use?
It's paid, but you only have to pay for it once, and you can also uh, do like a month free trial, I believe.
And so you use that with a drawing tablet, or do you use the mouse? Or is it strictly you have to use a drawing tablet with it?
Definitely a drawing tablet.
So how long have you been making digital art? Has it been quite a long time, or
Since 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018 is when I first started. So that's just over 4 years ago.
so not that long really comparatively, but how long have you but tradition so on top of the how many years you were doing tradition? How long were you doing traditional art for? Like a couple of years before that as well.
Yeah, a couple of years.
So about about roughly about 6 or 7 years in total doing art.
That seems about right. 6 or 7.
Good stuff. Let's move on to perhaps like go back into the topics we were exploring earlier and stuff like that. When it comes to like we've already, as I said, we've already discussed this at length before we did the podcast the other week when we just talked doing the pre-planning and stuff like that. Of course, you've received commissions off people through various mediums and stuff like that. But would you, in terms of commissions, do you believe there's a wider problem of artists undercharging for their work? Because that is an issue that has directly affected you. Is that one of the main issues when it comes to commission work? People are just undercharging for their work.
Yes, but since I talked about that with you, I've realised there's other aspects of that problem as well. I'd say the other issues as well is that there isn't really any sort of platform that we have that can help artists get the stuff, and you kind of have to rely on networking, at least in my opinion. But the problem with that is that it hasn't really gone that well for me, I suppose. That I do have a good chunk of artists who I talk to, but I suppose like none of them I've been able to like directly work with, I suppose, or at least not for any sort of extended period of time. Because I'm not at the same time I'm not expecting handouts. I want to like actually work together, if that makes sense.
Like collaborate with people, yeah,
Yeah, I believe that's the way to go forward.
definitely. Let's open it up a little bit then. So in the MLP space, so what sites do you actually upload onto? Is it just a Derpy Brew and a few others, or is it there's a few others that you upload to as well?
There's the people, there's Twitter, there's Thor Affinity, although I'm questioning why I even bother with it nowadays. And I also have an Ink Money page, although I also have been forgetting to upload there as well.
So so out of those websites that you upload to, what is the big issue that's relating to those? Is there a specific issue that affects you personally uploading those? What's the main issue like uploading to these sites? Is it visibility? Is that the main problem?
It's not visibility for all of them. Like each site has their own individual problems, I'd say. If I was to walk through it, I'd say Dopey is very good for browsing art. It's okay for artist discovery. There's a trending page, there's a featured image which is handpicked by the moderators, and the tagging system, generally speaking, is quite good, I'd say. It's quite helpful. When you start writing, it gives you suggestions as you go. And also anyone can add tags or remove tags as they see appropriate. So that can also help you in terms of like optimizing your tags. So you're not alone in that sense. But where I'd say Derpy Borrow falters a little bit, it's not necessarily a problem because it's not, at least before the whole fiasco surrounding, if you remember that. I won't get into it, but it just ended with a lot of artists kind of just abandoning the platform. So they kind of dropped the art archival thing, and there was a bunch of alternative sites that started popping up. And yeah, that's definitely another topic for another time.
I will have you on this podcast again, by the way, but like that, I think we'll cover that in the next episode. But because that's a huge thing to cover. But yeah, so Derpy Buru, that it's has its problems. But what about Fur Affinity then? What's the issue with uploading onto there? Is visibility on there more of a problem, or is it other issue?
I have multiple bones to pick with Fur Affinity, and
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So like first, it's bad for art posting because you have a very small resolution and file size limit. You can't upload anything above 10 megabytes, and also the resolution limit is not even 1080p. It's
720p. It's dog shit.
yes, it's bad. It's absolutely bad, and so that kind of ruins the whole point of my artwork. It's high resolution because it gives me more space to put in the small details. But then, what's the point if you can only upload 720p images? And I often find myself having to make a smaller version just for this site alone.
Yes.
So it's bad for posting art. It's bad for browsing art because there's no filters. Uh, there's no help surrounding tags. People can't edit tags to add or remove things they think is appropriate to the image. It's bad for artist visibility because there's no trending page, there's no recommendations, there's nothing. The only way people can find you if they don't already know you exist is if they just randomly stumble across your art while looking for something else. They might be browsing for a character, then they just see your art that you've made of that character. But there's no artist discovery systems in on Fur Affinity. It's just shit. It's bad, and it's just I'm just
It's really.
I've been on there since 2018, and I only have 250 followers.
It's not great, is it? Okay, so that's Fur Affinity dog shit. That's the general gist.
I hate it. I hate it, and it's only worth using if you're already popular. So, and by popular I mean like you have like 5,000, 10,000 followers.
But then again,
So,
I'll play devil's advocate for just a moment. But could
all
it
right,
be partly? I agree with you with pretty much all those points. I'll talk about my opinions of these sites in a moment, of course. But is it probably because we mainly do more pony stuff? It's less going to be less popular by default. It's more for more of that furry art, basically. Could that be part of the reason why?
I think that pony stuff not being the primary focus of the site might play an influence. It is called Fur Affinity after all, but even for the few pieces that I've done which are not MLP characters, I'm only getting like double-digit views on the vast majority of my stuff. It's just there's no discovery options for smaller artists to get discovered beyond paying for an advert. But why am I gonna pay for an advert when the site itself is bad?
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Like, why are you paying money towards a service that you know that you feel like isn't worth the money? That's a valid point.
It's not easy running a website, but at the same time, I want to see that the website can support my work before I even consider like running some ads on it or supporting them in general. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. But yeah, totally understand it on that point. Um, do you upload to DeviantArt? That's the other big one. DA. Do you upload to that one as well?
I used to, but now I don't anymore.
Is there a particular reason why? Is it that you don't upload on there anymore? Like you just stop using it, or
I just stopped using it, but after I stopped using it, I heard of apparently they made some sort of policy change where if you upload your work to DeviantArt, they reserve the right to use it for anything they see fit without your permission first. And I think that also caused a lot of artists to leave the platform. I stopped using it before that came into effect, but that's just something I heard about. And it's like, okay, I'm definitely not going to go back there. There's no reason to. And there's also the, a lot of controversy surrounding the Eclipse UI.
the user interface itself? Oh, okay, interesting.
I briefly looked at the new UI at one point, and I prefer it to Furry Affinity's UI at least, but at the same time, I think they changed it way too much in one go, if that makes sense, and that's kind of why people were upset with
Right.
regards to the UI.
I can't really comment on that because I haven't been on the platform enough to comment on that. But I've heard things about that. But you know more about it than I do. I'm pretty sure.
I feel Twitter is the best place for art, but at the same time, there's a lot of smaller gripes that I have with it. I mean, obviously, it wasn't designed to be an art site, it's just a general social media website. But the problems with Twitter, I suppose, is just you can follow someone and you can miss a lot of their content. And I think I think like despite whatever I might tell myself, I definitely do have a fan base of some description, but at the same time, I feel like my content isn't always reaching my viewers or my followers rather, and that can be a massive problem because I could be wrong on this, but I believe it's kind of like your main core followers that kind of get the ball rolling on each art post that you make, and then the algorithm will see this and like, oh, this piece has or this picture has received a lot of likes in a short amount of time. We're gonna boost this so it can get even more likes and retweets, and also the fact that Twitter has like an option to share something quite easily as well if you like it, which is not present on any of the other platforms. That's kind of why it's the best that we have at the moment in terms of artist discovery.
Yes, it's that's the thing, isn't it? Like no website available really has has all the pros and all the pros that you'd want. Like one website is better than at doing one thing, while another website is better at doing one thing, where another website isn't as good as at certain things.
You know what?
Yeah.
You wanna hear something funny?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
I also made a Tumblr account and then literally
What recently?
no, not recently. It was before. Like I made a
Before the Tumblr purge. Okay.
before the Tumblr exodus. Like I made a Tumblr account literally 1 month before they announced that,
Oh, you mentioned that. Yeah, of course. Yes. Oh no.
which is just that's the only other site that people use that had like a reshare function, and that's kind of how many artists like gained their followings, right?
Yes.
If they were around to take advantage of that, I really wasn't. You know, only having a month.
The artist community, yeah, the artist community really got stabbed in the back by Tumblr, didn't they? They really got screwed over by Tumblr, like simply because it was because of adult content. They couldn't be bothered, I think, in my personal opinion, to properly police it. So people They didn't want to properly regulate adult content as you should, but they just rather, oh, okay, then well now we've that was the main reason why Tumblr got so popular, because of the not safe for work content, and then they threw them under a bus and they decided, oh, we don't need you anymore, we'll discard you, and then look how that turned out. It still exists with a pulse, barely a pulse, but it serves them right, really. The what happened to Tumblr, but like after what that happened, like a lot of artists just like threw in the towel or move on to other websites. But yeah, that's another massive topic for another time. But I only heard about that through other people that used to post on there, so it's sort of always a contentious issue amongst artists, and they had the nerve on Twitter to announce like, oh, we welcome you back. No, I don't think so, mate.
They posted that SpongeBob meme of "Old Reliable," which is the most out of touch thing I've ever
Yeah,
seen
exactly. That's what I
in
mean.
quite a while. But it just wasn't worth it. All this because they wanted to be on the Apple App Store. They said no because like you're not regulating. I'm gonna call it cheese pizza. You're posting stuff that you're not, but that's not meant to be there. You're posting. You're letting CP slip through the cracks, and instead of regulating that as well as other illegal stuff that shouldn't be there, they decide, okay, we're gonna just throw all NFSW content in the bin.
Yeah, because they couldn't be bothered
And
to police it properly. That's the main crux of it. That's what happened, and like they fell apart because of it, because they couldn't be. I'm not saying that running an art website is easy by a long shot. You've got all sorts of logistical issues, and like you've got to have moderators to keep an eye on all that stuff. As you were saying, illegal content. That is a really good point. But my point is they were so blasé about it, and they decided to but we instead of like actually putting the work in to keep legal adult content on the site and keep the artist happy, we'll just throw all of them in the bin because we can't be bothered to properly police it properly. I guess I'll cover my opinions on these. What like. We British like to moan, okay, for the listeners out there. It's a natural pastime of ours. We like to moan about things, but there is a reason why we do it. There is a reason why we do it. With Derpy Buru, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Derpy Buru, mainly because I don't know. It's the tagging police. I don't like. It's a good system. Like you can tag it with, you can be as intricately detailed as you want, like tagging your artwork, like who's in it, the characters, and all the objects and everything with it, and whether it's explicit and what have you. Those are the crucial things. But I always get like people who like just I spent like half an hour tagging a piece or whatever it was, and like I don't know, the people on there are just strange, if you ask me.
I think it's even worse on E621.
Oh yes, that's another one I forgot to mention. That's another furry site. That's more. I don't post on there, but I don't know whether you post on. Do you post on there? I couldn't comment on that really.
I don't post my artwork on there directly, but there is someone who has been uploading some of my stuff on there with my permission. So
okay, yeah. That's fair enough. I'd rather have people say that my art is dog shit rather than like just be really weird about that sort of stuff. At least I can actually use that sort of comment to actually try and improve. Like, oh, your lighting's not so great or whatever. But I'd rather have that but deal with like the tagging police. But that's Derpy Brewery. That's sort of
It's actually against the rules to complain about tags. Like, you're encouraged to just change the tags as you see fit rather than complaining.
But they complain. They complain and change them anyway.
Everyone has the ability to change tags, even if you're not signed in. But if you're not signed in, you have to complete a captcha. But you can still change tags without an account.
But yeah, maybe it's just the type of
why complain?
But they do complain. That's the point, and that's another thing entirely. Like you get all sorts of weird comments on Derpy Buru. So that's Derpy Buru. DeviantArt is another weird one. It's sort of their policy with adult artwork is weird. Like they allow nudity most of the time, but they don't allow stuff like sexual activity and stuff like that. So they're a bit more puritanical on that side of things. But so you can have female nudity, but male nudity is a lot more frowned upon. So it's a bit of a weird sort of they're being picky and
Didn't know
choosy.
that.
Yeah, so that's what I've found. Like you can basically have you can be just fine with just nude pictures of characters, but if it's a male nude character, oh no. Generally speaking, you probably find that that'll get flagged most likely. So they're a bit weird and choosy with that sort of stuff. It's very very odd.
I've never had any problems with that. That's only because like I only posted female nudity and not much else.
You should be fine with that stuff on DA, but male nudity I find is like you don't tend to find it very often because they tend to police that a lot more. It's very weird place to be in.
Why do that? I don't get it.
I can't explain it to you, but that's what in my personal experience, like what I tend to find, like, you're allowing that kind of explicit art, but not that kind of explicit art.
Makes no sense.
It doesn't, though, does
That
it?
makes no sense. Like
it doesn't.
there's statue of naked men and women.
it makes no sense.
Both of them are art.
But yeah, but exactly. So it's very odd with DeviantArt, but that's my personal experience. Fur affinity, as you've already explained, is dog shit, and I agree with pretty much everything you've said. One of the annoying things as an artist, well, for me anyway, I have to for each website you have to like render out or draw out different versions, or you might have to do slight alterations to make it fit within the rules. For Fur affinity, of course, as we've said, it's limited to 720p, which is terrible. So I generally render my stuff at like around 4K, which is plenty for most people. It's really nice and detailed. But I have to, because it's too big, it doesn't fit within the memory limit. So I have to render out a smaller version just to make it fit within the 720p window, and it crushes all the detail. It looks nowhere near as good as the other places I post my art on. So that's really, really annoying. But what really annoys me is like quite some of the people have discovered me through Fur Affinity somehow. I don't know how, but they have. They mentioned to me, "Oh, I found you through Fur Affinity," when they mentioned to me on Twitter and stuff. But like, I don't know how you found me through Fur Affinity when I don't even plug it half the time because it's such a chore, posting things on there.
Most of the time, people who quote unquote discover me on Fur Affinity, they just ask for free requests, even though my commissioned is my pinned submission. It got so bad. I have to put it in like red bold text on my profile, like saying don't ask me for free requests, and it's disrespectful to ask that for someone who has open commissions.
And do you get weird people asking to role play with you? That's another one.
Oh yep, I've had that as well, and that's something that actively annoys me. I understand the premise behind the role play, but I don't understand why you would ask a random person about it without even talking to them first.
Can I role play with you? What about my art or my description on my Twitter made you think I want to role play with you? So that's Fur Affinity and DeviantArt. Twitter is another main one I post on. Again, I think it's algorithm based. I don't know. Twitter is really weird with not safe for work stuff again as well. Like you can get. I don't know what sort of algorithm they use or what sort of metric they're using to calculate these things, or whether to like promote another, a particular Twitter account over another one, for example. I don't know whether that's that's probably a part of the factor why sometimes a lot of art just doesn't get noticed at all. It's completely random, like whether a post does well or not. If you ask me, sometimes I post nothing for weeks and I still get followers, which makes no sense. And then when I actually, like, I don't know, do promotions from a podcast or post a new bit of artwork or a commission piece, I'll get barely anything. I don't, and sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't. I don't know what sort of metric they're using. That's got to be something to do with it anyway.
As much as I've kind of complained about the algorithm on Twitter, I have learnt some things that it doesn't like, I suppose.
Like adult content, that stuff gets filtered more frequently.
Like I find that in terms of like tweets that Twitter directly recommends to me, it's either safer work stuff or it's suggestive stuff, but like the bits are covered up.
That I tend to, with adult artwork, the stuff I make, I tend to crop all that stuff out or pixelate it out. I don't know whether I'm paranoid or not, but I tend to, like, as an extra precaution as well. I post like a cropped screenshot or whatever it is to the high quality version on Derpyberry or DeviantArt, and they can look at it there. That's what I tend to do. Because I think adult artwork is a bit, it's allowed, but it's frowned upon. I think that's the fair comment to make on Twitter.
I mean, if your fan base is big enough, you can still brute force it. Like you can get a lot of likes in a short amount of period, a lot of retweets, and then it might even promote you anyway. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, I've had a couple of recommended tweets that definitely were 100% not safe at work, but then they were usually from like a very popular artist.
it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you're sort of like having to play the game, I suppose. Like, you want to get promoted and you don't want to get buried, so you got to do all these you have to put a lot of work in just to make, like certain alterations just to make things work. I guess that's probably the most annoying thing I don't like about being an artist. The self promotion and the admin. That's what I don't like the most.
I mean, I don't mind the admin stuff. It's just there's no. It's really hard to pick up on any sort of consistency. I mean, I have been trying different things. Lately, I've been retweeting some of my older artwork, and it has, in a few cases, it has allowed a few more people to discover it, which is quite nice.
That is a good shout, actually. Like, maybe every now and then, like, for new followers, like, just do a like a recap thread, yeah, of your previous stuff.
That's something I've definitely noticed recently that I saw other artists doing it, and I thought initially like that wouldn't be a good thing because I feel like I don't like to recycle content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I can understand that. But you're not really recycling it. You're sort of, you're just basically just re-promoting it. So you're not doing it again. You're basically just, and for new people as well. Like, it would never hurts to do that. But yeah, that is a good point.
I don't mind like remastering stuff, and I probably will remaster some of my really older digital art pieces at some point in the future. But I just don't like recycling content. I try my best to keep things original, but it can be quite hard at times.
With like re-promoting my older stuff, like, I've sort of, I haven't done it for a while, but like, a while, like, after a certain milestone, I guess it was, I don't know, like once I get to like 600 or 700 or followers or whatever on Twitter, I'll probably like do like a recap thread where, like, I talk about the previous works I did and stuff like that. When it comes to remastering, the only remaster I did do one, I suppose. I went back to my second piece, with Rarity and Fluttershy. Basically, at the time, I didn't really know I was still learning how to use Blender. I still am, but like, at the time, my knowledge was quite limited. I basically just rendered a bunch of new renders I would have done at the time if I knew how to do it at the time, and I did a few new renders in that mold, and they did fairly well. But I can understand, like, the not wanting to go back on previous stuff because it's ground you've already trod on before, and like, you might not find it. You might think it's not really compelling for the viewers out there to look at stuff that you've already done already.
I think it works better with 2D artwork because like your style can more visibly change. I already have done like remasters of my older Octavia pictures. I initially did a Octavia wallpaper in 2019, and then I did a remaster of it in 2020. But I feel like even though it's literally meant to be the same thing, it still can be appreciated as something different because I added to it. So in the background.
Is that the one with the straighteners where she's holding the straighteners and like straightening her hair? Is that the
Uh,
one you're referring to?
no, but I was gonna get on to that one.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think I know which one you're on about. Yes, the one. Yeah. Okay.
The
Yeah.
one with like the music notes in the background. So
Yeah, that one.
yes.
Yeah, that's a nice piece. That's still a really good
So
piece.
like in the remastered version, I added more notes. I added the bass notes as well. Also, the style has visibly changed with improvements here and there. And the one with the straighteners, I'd also would kind of consider like a remaster, but at the same time, not really. I mean, she's still wearing the same outfits. There's still prominently like a purple theme going on, but I decided to do something different with its difference this time, and I decided to have her straighten her hair in front of the mirror, and it was quite a nice. It produced like quite a nice composition, I guess.
Yeah, I really like that one as well. Like where she's in front of the mirror and straightening it. I really like that. It's a really nice, simple piece, but it's really nice.
Speaking of which, like it's the second. That was the second time I was able to get over 1,000 likes on Twitter.
Oh, nice. That's a really good milestone to hit.
Yeah. So the first time was that Luna piece for a lingerie pack that I did, and a lot of people really liked that one for some reason. And it also single-handedly took me from like 800 followers to having over 1,000, and then I went from 800 to 1,000 from a Luna piece, and then I did a birthday gift art piece for the minuscule task. I went ahead and did it. I also gained a good amount of followers from that. I'd probably say just under 80 followers. And then I did my first vehicle commission this year for which is a 4GT4C for my friend Ardy, and that also, I mean, it didn't absolutely blow up, but it did extremely well for like a car pin-up commission. It gained over 400 likes, and it also gained me a lot of followers. And then I posted the Octavia piece not long after that, and it's just like I genuinely made me happy, like seeing like two home runs and two pieces that did exceptionally well for what they were back to back, and it actually kind of gave me some sort of hope. Like, okay, is this thing gonna start snowballing now? Am I? I haven't talked about it publicly too much, but I was kind of considering quitting if things didn't change. And honestly, if I didn't have at least 1,000 followers by now, over 4 years in, I probably would have quit, because I feel like there comes a point where you have to say, okay, is this, although I know that I'm good at what I do, although people have told me that I'm good at what I do, is this actually working and is this viable? Because I am looking to take art a bit more seriously. Like, it's gone beyond just being a hobby now. It's something that I'm trying to actively make an income from. And if it won't work, then I just I won't force it. You know, I don't have the willpower to force it. You know, and if people don't want to see my content, then you know I'll just move on and try something else. I don't know what that will be, but I'd move on, basically.
I will say that it would be a terrible shame if you decided to move on, but again, it's sort of only you can make that decision. If things aren't working for out like what you wish to achieve with your artwork, and if you wish to be financially make this thing financially viable, only you can make that decision. I don't. It's definitely not a lack of talent. It's definitely more of an issue with a lot of it is luck, which is unfortunate. It's rather than merit. It's more luck than merit in a lot of things. Going back to things like with self promotion and stuff like that, I tend to do a lot of. I'm a bugger for edits. I'm a sucker for edits.
Like alternate versions of pictures.
Alternate versions, yeah, alternate versions, exactly. So, I don't know whether it's exploitative or not. I don't know, but like, I do quite a lot of like with that birthday piece I did for my friend Coldy. I released 4 versions out of 25 different rendered versions. So I went a bit overboard with that one, but that's just one example. I like one's a normal version, one's a nude version, one's a I don't know a costume version, one's a bodysuit version, and all sorts of different versions in between. Tend to overdo it a little bit. I will admit that.
I feel like having too many alternate versions kind of dilutes the piece in a way.
Yes, it does. It does.
Like, it's not bad to have a couple, but I suppose if you're having like four, five, six, you've got to reevaluate what is your piece actually about, Like, and which one would you consider to be like the primary version?
It's more of a for me. It's more for having a load of options available, and then like, okay, I like that version more over that version, and I'll upload that. But yeah, I can understand like why maybe I should dial it down a little bit. But I don't know. Like I'm a sucker for like alternate versions. For certain things, but there you go.
I think it's only when things get a bit excessive that I think it kind of really, I won't say negatively affects, but it kind of just gets a bit ridiculous. Like you will have a clothed version, you will have a nude version, you will have a nude version with bigger boobs, you'll have a nude version with smaller boobs, you'll have uh maybe like a lingerie version, and then a lingerie version with the big boobs, and then a lingerie version with the small. It kind of just gets a bit ridiculous.
I'm exactly the same. Oh no. Now you've put it that way. Oh
I
yeah, I
think
can understand
that
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 now.
is when things get ridiculous. But there's nothing wrong with having a couple, having a clothed version, having a nude version, and then maybe a couple of interesting outfits.
What's your opinion on your character here's then? Are you a fan of that sort of model where like you have like an artist will have like a set pose they've set up with and like they offer that to loads of people? What's your stance on that? Are you a fan of that or don't you like that sort of setup when it comes to commissions?
I understand why people do it, but I don't like it on principle, if that makes sense. I don't like the fact that it's essentially it doesn't allow you to like tailor a piece specifically for a character, I suppose, unless you're willing to redo a lot of the piece, if that makes sense, but which the artist might not necessarily be willing to do, right? And you
Yes.
also have to think about composition. Composition. Could the composition work with the kind of character that you have, right?
Yes.
Again, I understand why people do it. I understand why artists do it. I understand why people bid on them or buy them, depending on whether it's an auction or not. They might just see something that they like and they like what they see, so they're gonna bid on that auction. Uh, so it might just be like a thing in the moment that they decided. It might be because they don't have much ideas themselves, but at least in my case, if a client is a bit unsure of what they like, that's when like I'll step in and give some suggestions, and I will also bear everything in mind that they have said. So, if they gave me a couple of rough ideas but they aren't unsure of specific details, that's when I'll give some suggestions. So it might be like how to set the lighting up, how what kind of things I could add into the background if they weren't too sure. Things like that. It tends to be smaller things, but I'll ask clients to make sure that the big details are sorted and that they're happy with that before we continue.
When it comes to commissions and stuff, like it's always good to if people are not entirely sure what they're looking for, they can ask you, the artist, for assistance or for like a more of an overview just to build an idea off of. So when it comes to commissions, do people tend to give you lots of instructions, or do you tend to give them more advice when it comes to making an art piece for them, or is it somewhere in between?
I'd say it's something in between, and the reason why I say that is that most of the clients I've had so far, they've had like a general idea of what they want. They'll have a character in mind. They might have a couple of poses in mind. But what I'll typically do with every commission is that I'll also use Clip Studio Paint's 3D models to create like a 3D draft of the scene or the pose. and see if it kind of looks good in practice. That's if they describe the pose, but even if they show me a picture of the pose they want, I might recreate that pose and try viewing it from different angles, and I do that with pretty much every commission that uh I do because I find it's a great way to bounce ideas back and forth, and it also adds a bit of clarity to the situation as well. So if I make a 3D draft that the commissioner likes, I will I'll use that as the main reference, and I'll make it as close as to that as possible in terms of like the pose, and yeah, it just makes sure that they get exactly what they want with their commission. I also have a couple of 3D car models as well, so that's also quite helpful. There is one that comes with Clip Studio Paint, but there have been a couple of other models that I've either downloaded for free or I've purchased, and I have a collection of like different models as well, which is quite helpful. I also have like a big pack of like generic looking models as well, and it's just mainly for uh, composition and planning purposes, because the composition can also change depending on the shape of the car as well. And something else that's quite useful as well is that once you've placed your 3D objects, once you create like a drawing layer, it will also make a perspective ruler that matches it, that matches like so that also makes it quite easy to get started. So I don't have to be manually doing a perspective ruler.
Make sure you get it so you get it right first time, basically.
Yep. So I'm more about like doing a lot of pre-production planning, and then once I actually start drawing, I know more or less exactly what I'm going to do. Although I may try and experiment with things along the way as well.
Hmm.
More so if it's my own personal piece rather than a commission.
So what sort of etiquettes then would you expect like a commissioner to follow when commission a piece from you, or anybody really, to make it more general? What sort of etiquettes would you say of people, like if, for example, if someone wanted to ask you for a commission, what sort of etiquettes would you expect them to reasonably follow, or any artist to follow when commissioning something?
I mean, I don't. I tend to be despite my slightly professional persona, I suppose, I tend to be a bit more laid back with certain things. So, I'm not someone who will constantly be chasing people down uh, for the rest of the payment if they choose to do split payments. Understand that people's financial situations can change. I suppose apart from that, I mean, don't agree to do a commission that you fully well know you can't afford. Uh, don't don't push an artist if they say that they're not comfortable with something. I've had one bad experience with a client in the past. I'm not sure if I told you about this in the.
You may have done, but if you want to reiterate it here, go ahead.
Sure, I'll leave the name out of it because I'm not, this client, they approached me and they were quite demanding. Demanding in the sense that even before the commission got started, they wanted like some sort of like weird latex fetish thing, and I initially didn't understand, and I had to look it up, and they kind of treated me as if I was stupid for not knowing what it was. They also mentioned that in addition to the art commission that they wanted me to do an edit of an existing animation, and they all wanted that for $40 for both, which is kind of a bit ridiculous. And I said no, and I said I'm only willing to do the drawing for that price, I think. And I, in hindsight, I still kind of regret doing that commission because it kind of it just stands out like a sore thumb compared to all of my other work, and it kind of also goes against one of my artistic beliefs as well, in the sense that I believe like not it doesn't always have to be about the fetish. Like I tend to not really focus on that aspect of my work or at all really. Like, obviously, I want my characters to look good. I want them to look nice, but I don't. Ironically, I don't focus on the sexual aspects too much, which is a bit funny to say. It's a bit ironic.
I think it was not so much the fetish part of the art. I think it's more that that you maybe against your better judgment decided to go ahead with like the commission rather than like declining it outright. I think a lot of artists have got similar stories. I think like Anton, who I spoke to in a previous episode, like talks about regretting going ahead with a commission when like a commissioner was being belligerent. Let's just say, but I guess it's just a learning process and like growing from that experience, like knowing when to say, well, no, I'm not going to do this.
I've gotten a lot better at saying no since then, which is a good thing.
It's etiquette. It's like it's both the artist and the commissioner have etiquettes to follow, of course. Like at the as a commissioner, like there's, as long as you're polite and like you ask questions. I think it's always fair to ask people if you're not sure of what an artist is comfortable making for you, then feel free to ask away, or maybe look at their previous stuff. That's what I tend to do. Look, if I'm not sure if this artist is comfortable with doing something in particular, I'll look at their past works and say, "Oh, they've done that before. They'll be okay with that." But I'll still ask the question anyway. Would you do this scenario for me? For how much would it be? Stuff like with some of my commissions, like I've commissioned in the past and stuff. Like one or two, like they've said, like maybe I don't want to do that. Would you do something else? And yeah, that's absolutely fine. It's a part of the give and take part of the process, like working together to come to a agreement, and like that's always the best policy. I think just ask the question of the artist that you want to commission from. That like don't be rude. Just check their commission policy. Ask the price or the pricing options, what they do, and then you decide to proceed or not. It's mainly on the commissioner, I guess. Like more etiquette is on the commissioner rather than the artist. But again, there are rules for the artist to follow as well. Like I'm trying to think an important one for the artist to do. I think it's fair if you're taking money off somebody, I think it's fair to give the commissioner regular updates. I think that's not a reasonable. That's a reasonable request. Another artist I commissioned from, again, I won't say who it was. A bit of a minor misdemeanor in the grand scheme of things, but like I didn't hear anything for like over a month or something like that. I'm not the person to like to chase people all the time for commissions, but like I thought it was a bit unfair to go quiet for a while, especially when I paid quite a fair bit of money up front for. I paid for the whole thing up front, about I think it was like at least £150 or something like that. So which is a decent size amount of money for a piece of artwork for an entry level piece of artwork anyway. But like I don't know, I think there are rules for both parties to follow anyway.
Yeah, you can definitely take the mick as an artist as well. And I can't believe that there's artists out there who can go for so long without saying anything to their clients. Like to me, it's a very foreign concept. Like you can't just do that. Like there might, in the defense of some artists, there might be like some sort of circumstance that might prevent them from doing that. But other than that, like you don't ghost your clients.
I
Like
did get the commission in the end, but like my issue was like I generally let people get on with it, like just like I might check in every couple of weeks or something like that if it's quite a big commission, but it sort of put me off commissioning them again because of how long they took to get back to me, even though their art is really good. But that sort of irks me a little bit on that front.
communication is very, very important, and that's something that I focus on. I focus on making sure that my commission info is clear. I also talk to my clients very regularly. I will rarely go even a week without at least saying something. You don't have to always be showing page updates, but just reach out to your clients, say something, ask them how they're doing, and in some cases, I even talk to my clients after the commission's done, because like we've built like a genuine relationship by the end, or a genuine friendship.
Yeah, that does happen an awful lot. Like a lot of the people I've commissioned, I talk to fairly regularly. So it is a good thing, and that is also a very good way to promote your artwork as well. Like if you I promote all the stuff I commission from people, and like from that people check out my other stuff as well. So that's another good way of promoting yourself. So it is a beneficial thing to do. Like if you're ever commissioning people, like be transparent with people. Like let people know who the artist was, and it's beneficial for all parties. So I do recommend doing that too. If you commission a lot of people, just credit their work. That's another really good thing to do.
It's another thing, like as an artist, please be accountable for like the stuff that you do, right?
Yes.
And that kind of leads into the point of like communication.
Definitely. Have you ever come across like a situation like that? Not mainly of yourself, but like maybe of other people that you've come across, maybe that you've come across where etiquettes weren't followed.
Certain uh, examples. One of them I can think of right now. Like again, I'm gonna leave names out of it, but another friend of mine is expecting a commission from an artist. They're fairly popular, but they haven't heard anything from them in over 2 months, which is not good.
That's not great. Like 2 months. That's beyond unreasonable. Not even like a message or like an email to saying there's been an issue or something like that. Even like a little update.
It just it makes me sad. I'm not gonna lie to you. I know it's hard being an artist, but I besides quality, I also prioritize communication, and I might not be the most uh organized in my work. I might not be the fastest artist, but the one thing I can testify to is that I will never leave a client in the dark.
Yeah, that is definitely like an issue that like some people like it's not fair on the commissioner like to be left in the dark like that. Like, am I ever going to get like the commission, or am I going to get my money back, or what's happening? Like I commissioned a piece, never even got it. So it's happened to me. This was a couple of years ago. This was, but like never got a response. So which really annoyed me. So it has happened before.
I believe that your reputation is more valuable than almost any sum of money. That's why I'm so willing to cooperate with my clients. Um, I've never had to do this, but I'm willing to refund the money if they change their mind before I start in full, or if I have started. I'll consider doing a partial refund depending on how far I've gotten with the piece. I've never had to do that before, but I have had to refund people mainly with like car commissions. Like they wanted one, they paid the initial deposit, and then they had to back out of it because they couldn't uh, pay off the rest.
Yeah,
And it was you know it's a bit of a pain. I'm still trying to improve things with my commissions, but I'm not gonna contest it too much if I haven't already started a piece. So I can just give them the money back and find someone else.
yeah. I think it's just a matter of principles, isn't it? I suppose like you've got to get like have your own set of rules to follow, so all parties have it's fair for everybody. Like you as an artist can like trying to deliver the best piece of art that you can for your client, and of course your client um, um, uh, provides you pays on time, gives you plenty of references to use, and make sure all parties are happy with the transaction at the end of the day and stuff like that. So, but it does happen more often than it should, I think, and I think um, there's loads of stories of like people demand it. Like it's more. I think it's more the commissioner. Like the commissioner tends to be more at fault generally, but it's not always the case. You do get it artists that just literally just take the money and run, take the piss in all sorts of different ways. But I think that when it comes to etiquettes, I think it's just common courtesy, I guess. To be transparent is the crucial thing. Like with your commissions, you've with your commissions, like with your whatever commission that you're offering people, you've got a massive detailed rundown of all the different cost factors that can be involved, and like all the variables and things. That's pretty much like I think everyone should aspire to that standard, but like not everyone does, unfortunately. And I'm not trying to be snobby on the whole thing. Because I've commissioned pieces before I became an artist, and I understand it's not easy being an artist, of course, because of the the amount of time investment that it can take to make anything really of a good standard, and things like that. I'm not perfect myself, of course, and like things do happen, and I'm not saying that people who ask for a refund like are arseholes, but because there's like mitigating circumstances, of course, isn't there? Like where you've got, for whatever reason, like that they might lose their job or whatever, whatever it is that like causes problems in the commission, or you can't follow through with it. In either party can't follow through with it, then that's understandable. But with I think communication is the probably paramount. I think, if you ask me, what would you want to move on to specifically? Anything that relates to you specifically you wanted to discuss?
Talked about it briefly before the podcast, but exchange rates.
So exchange rate with the commissions, is that a particular problem for you specifically?
Yes, I'll explain. Most of my clients are from America. The pound is more valuable. It means that it's actually more expensive for my clients, and it also goes the other way as well. If you live in a place with like a very depressed economy, such as anywhere where the the US dollar is a lot more valuable, you can offer to work for less and still get a decent amount of money in your own currency, and I think is at least partially responsible for certain expectations surrounding pricing.
In addition to maybe people charging not enough, that's another compounding issue.
Yeah, and it's difficult because as much as I don't want to say this, like if you're trying to make regular money from commissions, like you kind of have to see other artists as competition, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't have that mindset. Like I'm not cutthroat. I talk to smaller artists. I talk to some artists who are bigger than me if they're willing to talk back. But when it comes to commissions, I suppose that's where I'm not. It's not cutthroat, but that's like where all my passion goes into. Like this is where I want to stand out, right?
Yes.
And despite my efforts, I feel like commissions for me have been going a bit downhill. Some of it could be blamed due to COVID, but I don't think that's entirely the reason because I think by now most people, in at least some sense, have somewhat financially recovered, at least. So it might have been a factor a year ago or 2 years ago, but I think now I don't think that's a problem.
Not so much with COVID, but you've also the cost of living is partially a factor. You could also argue as well on that one. So it does put more pressure on you to get commissions from people because there's less disposable income in general.
And that's kind of where exchange rates kind of come in because Americans have to relatively pay more. They're less likely to do it. Several people who have said they liked my stuff, but I'm out of their price range. But at the same time, I don't believe that I'm charging anything that's ridiculous for what you get.
For the work that you put in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and something else has just come to mind that I want to talk about. It's not related to what we're talking about, but it's kind of just something else that I think is also interesting. And because of my commission pricing, many people will look at the price tag that I have now, where it can range anything between like 750 to over £1,500. Before that, on my previous sheet, it was like £1,000 fixed price, regardless of the car, and then background would cost extra. But people will look at that and think like, "Wow, this artist must be doing really well because he's putting out car images on a somewhat regular basis. He must be making thousands of pounds every time he draws uploads a car image." But that's not the case, and I wonder, is the reason why I've been struggling is because people think I'm more successful than I actually am.
That it could be partly due to that, I suppose. It's a possibility for sure, but I'm not entirely sure whether that will be the.
It's not the defining factor. I definitely think it's like a major contributing factor because I have talked to someone about this. I will name them because it's in a more positive light. At some point, I talked with Task about like my problems as an artist. I told him about my commissions, showed him my commission price sheet, and he said back to me, do you know how well off you are? You're selling car commissions for £1,000, and some people are actually buying it. I suppose it might look that good on surface level, but making £1,000 every couple of months is not that impressive.
And he wasn't. I don't think he wasn't like saying it in a way to demean your asking price. He was just saying like he was looking at. Oh, you must be. He's looking at it like from a.
It wasn't meant to be demeaning. It's just that it's that kind of misconception I was talking about appearing more successful than I actually am. Because you have to realize that a lot of people with this kind of thing will just look at it on a surface level. Like they won't bother to investigate what goes on. Like there's probably lots of people who think, for example, that RD paid over £1,000 for his commission, and although he paid quite a bit, it wasn't £1,000. His commission took quite a long time to finish, and it was mostly down to me. It was my fault, but you know, he commissioned it back when my prices were cheaper, and although it took a long time, I always kept in touch with him. The reason why it took a long time is that I was just mentally burnt out, and I just found it hard to sit down and work on stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why there was a massive delay with his art piece. People won't. I mean, I wouldn't expect people to know about that because it's not public information until now. But I don't mind putting it out there because I think people should know.
And I think another big issue is I think when it comes to commissioning, like just the everyman. Let's just say.
Average user, average viewer.
The average commissioner, let's just say, the average everyman,
Okay,
the average everyman doesn't
okay, let's
know
go with that.
doesn't know um, the amount of work that goes into these things. They don't know that the amount of work and the technical skill that is, especially when it comes to like doing the pinup commissions, where it takes hundreds of hours of work and technical skill to put these things together, and like how long it's such a long time consuming process. They don't. That all they see is you want, I don't know, you want X amount of money for this particular kind of commission. They don't see the technical side of it so much unless they specifically scope it out, or they're an artist themselves and they then in turn learn that these aren't things that are made in 5 minutes. These take literally hundreds of hours to put together. Especially I can the amount of complexity like based on that Fallout commission alone. I can see just by looking at it like that must have taken you literally several months to put that together, over several weekends and late nights to put that thing together, to just because of how technical
Yep.
how good it is. That's the biggest issue, I think.
It took like 2.5 months, and I spent so long in it. Is that it originally was meant to be a 600 follower milestone piece, but by the time I finished it, I had over 700. So I changed the sign in the background to be 700 just
Just
before I
just
finished it.
just put a cross over it. That's it. That's all you got to do.
No, I didn't even put a crossover. I just replaced it. So instead of 600, it was 700, and I just mentioned in the comments or the description somewhere that I spent so long on this that I now had 700 followers, and I still think that it's arguably one of my best.
That's your magnum opus, I think, probably. That or the Scootaloo pick. I think the Fallout ones. No, 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 it's not. But I'm biased. I like that one with Rainbow Dash. I like that one. The one I showed you the other day. But that Fallout one is brilliant. It's but try not to blow smoke up your bottom. I'm not. I promise you that. But it's just by looking at it, I can tell. Because I'm an artist myself, I can see the amount of technical work that's gone into that. But the issue is like people who just want commissions of people, they may not necessarily know the technicalities and like how much work. They just see the finished piece. They don't see the works in progress. They don't see
Yeah,
the struggles and all the changes you might have had to make to this piece or whatever, or if you had to make any. All that stuff in the background is not so visible, I think.
I would consider the Scootaloo piece to be like my flagship art piece, if you could call it that. But
Yeah.
the Fallout piece is a very, very close second. And it's because of the background details, it's because of the car itself. It's surprisingly accurate, even though, given it's more simple in shape. But I've regardless, I've been able to capture it quite accurately, and also the reflections, if you've noticed that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, I
The,
have.
the car the car actually reflects the environment around it, including the characters.
Yeah,
You can
it's
see the road in the reflections. You can see Little Pip in the reflections. You can also see a bit of Blackjack in the reflections on the car as well.
it's the little touches, it's the little flares that make the piece pop. That's it. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's the process itself, isn't it? That's the issue.
I really enjoyed making that piece as well because I took a lot of screenshots in Fallout 4 to be able to replicate the Red Rocket truck stop quite fairly accurately.
Yeah, it's really good. Like you've nailed that. Like the garage when you that's one of the first places that you visit in Fallout 4, and that's where you meet dog meat. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed Fallout 4 as my first game, but immediately after I finished that piece, I started streaming Fallout New Vegas, and a couple of people also watched for that as well.
Hmm.
Took several playthroughs, but it was quite an enjoyable and fun experience, and also something that I want to try doing again at some point, in the sense that I have an art piece linked to a game, and then I play that game right afterwards.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite a good way to engage my audience.
Would you do another car piece in Fallout, or would it be something else, Fallout related?
Uh, I'd have to think about that one because I think in terms of like car pin-up ideas, that's more or less the only one that kind of makes sense. That car, that car is in Manuka World Vault, and that's the only priceless cherry bomb slash Rocket 69 that's undamaged. So that's the only one that could plausibly be used. Plus, I also like the contrast between like the pristine car and the background being a wasteland.
And I'm trying to think. The only other one you could do from Fallout 3, from the Mothership Zeta DLC, because there is like there's another car that the aliens like took before the bombs fell. It's a different shape. I don't know what it's called, but there is like in one of the rooms there is a car that's undamaged and pristine in the mothership somewhere. That you could probably do something like that. That's the only thing I can really think of. If it had to be a car in Fallout, but that's
Regardless, I'll definitely try and do another Fallout piece this year. I have a lot of ideas that I want to try and get out, but I'll work on things one at a time, depending on what I feel like doing first. And I suppose more importantly, I'll have to try and find my motivation because I feel like that has definitely been dropping a lot lately.
yeah. Move on to another topic, maybe, or another game to take ideas from. Maybe
Yeah.
it's always instead of just staying in one place all the same time. But yeah, I can totally understand that. But For that Fallout one is a very that's a difficult one to beat. It's in my book anyway. That's a high benchmark to clear for sure. And that Scootaloo one as well. Those are really high ones to do better than that.
I do have more ambitious projects in the works, so maybe I might have something that could dethrone one of those two. What was you gonna say?
What was I going? Oh, just a side thing. That Scootaloo one. That's like an ultra wide, isn't it? Is it like it fits 3 monitors? Is that right?
Yes, yes, I'm using it.
So you specifically made that to fit 3 monitors
Yes,
together.
I'm still using that as my background on my sim rig. So
Oh, that's dedication, making an art specifically just for your own monitors, isn't it?
honestly,
Just to-
I might consider doing more ultra wide stuff because I think
yeah, there's not a lot of stuff that is specifically built for bespoke, like for ultra wide stuff. It's mainly just like standard 16:9, but not like I don't know 16:10 or whatever it is, or 21:9, the ultra wide ones.
I feel like that's definitely a bit of an untapped market. Maybe
Yeah, a little bit of a niche there.
I don't know. I mean, if you have anyone who likes MLP, likes sim racing, and also just happens to have a sim rig with triple monitors, then maybe I'll be able to make a commission for you.
I've got two 4K monitors, but I've like side by side, like one's at a weird angle. I like to do an ultra wide, like a really stupidly wide. I don't know what that would be, two 4Ks together, but like it's oh god, it would take about 300 years for me to render something on that probably at that height, like stupidly wide. Not that I've ever tried it, but like that would be an interesting one to get into. I wouldn't even know what sort of scenario would work on that sort of setup, other than like inside of a spaceship or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, I make my stuff in like very high resolution, so you know it's beyond 4K. So I guess in a way, it's also future proof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like render it to something that's like theoretical resolutions. Render stuff out like I don't know, like 16K if your machine will cope with that, and then just like a few years later, once 16K monitors, I don't know, become the norm, I guess. Then you got like, oh, I'll release a high res version, the really high res version.
Yeah, that's something that I also kind of value in a way, I suppose. Like, not, I guess the idea of future-proof lewd artwork is a bit absurd, but I just,
You got to have them 8K nudes. You got to have them. Keep them ready for a rainy day.
yeah, it's kind of just like I want people to enjoy my work. Uh, High resolution allows me to fit in more details. You can zoom in all the way, and the picture will still be in high quality.
Yeah, I love pictures that you can zoom in on the little finer details that you might have missed at first glance.
Yeah, and sometimes I even put little Easter eggs or funny messages in my artwork. You know that Rainbow Dash piece that you liked? Have you read the door sticker, for example?
Let me let me scroll up on the picture there because just scroll. Ah, there we go. Right, let's just get this in big, ultra big.
Zoom in on the open
So
door.
where am I? Oh, on the open. Oh, right, on the door well.
Yeah,
Okay,
on the
let's
doorwell. Zoom in on the sticker there.
got it full resolution. Here we go. Let me just zoom in here.
Right, zoom in on the door sticker.
Zoom in on the door. Fucking where am I? Over here.
Right, go ahead.
Celine, manufactured by Celine Incorporated, this vehicle conforms to all federal motor vehicle safety and theft prevention standards in effect on the date of manufacture. Also, why are you why are you reading this fake safety label instead of looking at the sleek and sexy pony with her tits out? Made in the USA. Wonderful. I never noticed that.
Uh,
No, I never looked at that. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. Well done, mate. Well done. Fucking brilliant.
yeah. I mean, I looked at the original door stick and I decided, no one's gonna read this, but if they are gonna read it, they're expecting like some sort of Easter egg. So no, why not put something funny there? And I've also put a funny Easter egg. Well, 3 Easter eggs on the Scootaloo picture actually, and they're all on the higher
Oh yeah.
barcodes.
Let's have a look. I'm intrigued now. Easter egg hunting's always good.
Read the soft tie, the red tie first. That's the first one. The last one is very hard to read, so if you can't read it, I'll tell you
Let's have
what
a
it
look.
says. Yeah.
Right, let me find it. The Scootaloo piece. Where are you? Right, the second one. Right, okay. Let's open this.
Yeah, so like read the red soft tie first. That's the first one.
Reading the tire off the tire. Okay.
The little barcode
Oh,
thing.
crikey, O'Reilly. Okay, let's see if it let me.
Am I surprised someone actually noticed this and like commented on it on Derpy Borough actually? People actually like look for these things. They look for smaller details and Easter eggs. And
I do love stuff like that. Right. Let's see.
this one is also funny.
You're gonna have to help me with this one. It's a bit too blurry for
Fine,
me.
I'll read out what it says. Just give me a moment. It's hard to see because it's very, very, very small, despite the obscene resolution. Because it is absolutely tiny.
10,000 by 80. 10,000.
Yes, bearing in mind that's not
How many?
that's not
How many?
that's not the triple screen version.
That's stupidly. That's huge. That's like. What is that?
All right, okay, so
You're already doing these theoretical resolutions already.
all right, so like the first tire, which is the red one that Scooter was leaning on, it says
Yeah.
tires get hot, but you know what's hotter? Scootaloo's ass. Look her backside is
Oh,
this damn barcode, which is funny on its own. But if people kept on reading the barcodes, they'll see that the rear right, that one says you again. Why are you reading this fake barcode? Look at Scoot's butt, damn it! I worked hard to make her look good. And then the
oh
last
my
one,
god.
which is just almost impossible to read, it says, "Fine, you win. There's no more Easter eggs."
That's brilliant. Little touches like that, like it's like a little story. Like you're hiding in the picture.
Yeah, I mean, like this one is like a full-blown story. Because
People love this sort of stuff. It's great.
I figured, like, if they're gonna bother reading one barcode, they're probably gonna read them all just to see if there's anything else that's funny that's hidden in the image.
Yeah, thanks. I'm always in for little details. It adds something to the image, specifically if it's a little fan service, and your work is just amazing, by the way.
I was considering like hiding more stuff on the car itself, but
No,
I felt like
maybe you want it to be like the Easter egg to be hidden, so like not everyone sees it.
yeah,
There's an art to that, I think. Like you want it to be there, but you only want it to be for the eagle-eyed people out there that pay attention, and like oh, you found it, yeah, fantastic.
I mean, like, I also value like things being authentic, so as close to like the actual car as possible. So I wouldn't. That's why I didn't do any like Easter eggs on the car itself, but like, tire barcodes, safety labels are the perfect sort of thing for this because yeah, they're expected to be there, but most people won't read them because like they're like, oh, it's just a barcode, it's just a safety label, it's just you know. But if they do bother to read it, like they'll find these funny messages.
It's stuff like that. Is what the little cherry on top. Like in few of mine, like the most recent piece I did for Coldy's birthday piece. There is not everyone. Well, not everyone will see it, but there is an Easter egg directly in front of the birthday cake. That knife on the picture, for people who don't know, is from Metal Gear Revengeance. That is the sword that he uses in the game. I've just shrank it down to make a birthday cake knife, and because I put that in there as a little nod, because like he's a fan of Metal Gear, so I put that in there as a little nod there. But not everyone noticed that, but a few people did, so I was quite pleased with that.
When you put this kind of stuff into your work, it kind of like shows that you're having fun with it, right?
That exactly, yes. Like you thought, oh, you know what'd be good? I'll put that in there. It's stuff like that. And there is another one, if you permit me to indulge my older stuff.
Oh,
Really early piece I did with Cheerily, Twilight, and Fluttershy sitting on the desk in the classroom. There's stuff written on the chalkboard's got stuff on it, and I've deliberately obscured some of the words behind the characters specifically, just to wind people up. I have put the pony behind there, but I've never revealed who it is, just to wind people up. So
uh,
that sort of stuff. Like I put that in there. Like people asking me, like, who is best pony? I'm not telling you. Not telling you. Please stop on the left hand side. Even more obvious one. Please stop looking at the chalkboard for Easter eggs, and a lot of the words are obscure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
I suppose like another smaller Easter egg. I mean, it's not something that you'd know it was an Easter egg if you saw it, but on the Octavia piece on the phone, you'll see like a time and date, and that's the approximate time on that day that I finished that piece.
oh, that's a nice little homage. That's a nice little reference. Yeah. Stuff. It's just stuff like that. It's really pleasing when stuff like that is actually in the piece somewhere, and not everyone spots it or knows the relevance of certain things. But yeah, P0, is that a reference to F0 by any chance?
No, that's just genuine. That's just
Oh,
Pir- that's
oh, that's a genuine
that's
brand. Oh,
just
I see.
Pirelli's line of tires.
Oh, I thought that was like a reference for F0 then for a second. Oh, fair enough. You could have said yes, and I would have been none the wiser.
No, I'm about authenticity and also being honest. So yeah, E0 is just Pirelli's line of tires for sports cars as well as F1 cars.
So they're like really ultra smooth. Is that like for extra grip, like in Formula One cars? They're called super slicks. Are they called? Is that right? I'm not sure.
Just slick tires, and the purpose of it is to maximize contact in the dry. But as soon as the track gets wet, you'll just be skating on top of the water, which is why you have separate wet tires and intermediates.
Ah, that's what. So it's like they Formula One cars like work in a different way. Like you get more grip the faster you go. Is that how it works?
Uh, to an extent, yes, especially because they brought ground effect back, which is underbody downforce that gets gets stronger the faster you go. Sometimes too strong because a lot of teams have had problems with uh, porpoising, which is where the car bounces up and down
Oh
on the
man,
straights.
that must be terrifying if the car starts doing that. You're going at 200 miles per hour and it starts bouncing. Oh god.
Yes.
Fucking hell. Look,
So you can even see it as well. You can see it. It's that bad with some teams, Mercedes particularly, although they've started to solve the problem.
oh, so it's a mechanical problem then. Is that why that happens?
No, it's just that if your car's porpoising, it ironically means that your ground effect is working a bit too well because it will pull the car completely to the floor, which will remove all underbody downforce. Then it will spring back up because the downforce is no longer there, and then it starts working again, and it brings the car back to the floor, and then you just have that process
You've
repeating.
got past the point where like it needs to work, and then oh my, so it's like a kind of like a repeating vacuum effect in a way.
Yes, like a ground effect can be quite powerful, so powerful it can make the car bottom out, and that's why the car bounces.
Oh god, that's terrifying.
Because when it bottoms out, all of the downforce is instantly gone. Then the car raises.
I'm just like, again, like I'm not trying to blow smoke up your bottom. Like I've got the Scootaloo piece in front of me. I'm just like glancing over like all the little details on here. Oh, you got the is
That car's from 2020, and it doesn't have ground effect, so it doesn't have this problem.
what's that like circular thing is that the halo? Is that what it's called? That like with Claro on it.
Yeah, yes, yes, that's a Halo.
You know more about this than I do. Why did they bring that in? Was it like a safety feature or something like that? They brought that in.
Safety feature. Some people say it was like a knee-jerk reaction to the death of Jules Bianchi, but apparently the Halo was considered and also in development before that, so that might have just been like the what's the expression here? Um, fuck, I don't know what I was gonna say, but
A reaction to that or a response to
I
that?
suppose it's just I suppose the death of Jules Bianchi kind of just accelerated the process because they were also considering like
Catalyst. That's what you're looking for.
catalyst.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
There was a lot of controversy, but now there isn't any sort of debate on it because it has arguably saved lives of at least two drivers. Once with Roman Grosjean when he had that horrible crash in Bahrain, and then last year with Lewis and Max. The thing I'm talking about specifically was in Monza where they had contact, and then Max's car literally went over Lewis's, and like his Max's rear tire was on Lewis's head, but it was also on the halo as well. So the
The halo
it kind of
fuck.
stopped it from
So like that,
like crushing his
the
head
tire like
basically.
flew at him basically, and then hit the halo. Oh, how fast was that tire going?
No, it was still attached to his car. It's just that when they made contact, Max's car went over Lewis's car,
Oh
and then
shit!
when they stopped, his car was still on his head and the halo.
Oh shit! Oh my god, that's even
Yes,
worse.
so he might have been a lot. It could have been a lot worse if the halo wasn't there.
Fuck me, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I've seen like different, like all sorts of crashes like that, like because there's loads of stuff like that on YouTube, but like some of them are just horrendous. Like, oh, it's just terrifying. Like people, like the amount of speed these machines can get to, over 200 miles per hour plus, and all the rest of it, and how all it takes is one mistake and you go flying, or a mechanical failure somewhere for something stupid like that, to stuff to go tits up, and like fucking hell, that's you, game over.
IndyCar also has something that's similar to a halo. They have a windscreen, but underneath that, for structure and stuff, they also have something that's basically a halo as well. Is that the windscreen will also protect you against like smaller debris as well.
Yes. A lot of the safety features from Formula One leak into like regular cars, don't they? Like I think seat belts came from Formula One. I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. Because they spend so much money on research and development. Formula One in general, that's how a lot of these innovations like bleed over. It's I'd love to try to drive one, like maybe just once, but like at the same time, I'd be terrified to do that. I'll probably stick to video games, I think. My God. But yeah, that piece is amazing. I'm just looking at the. Oh, it's got like the rivets as well on the bodywork, and it's got a little fuel cap. Is that a fuel cap?
Yep. So those are the screws that
you see. I do.
Yes, you have the emergency stop ring as well.
It's stuff like this. It's like that people are not paying attention. Like I'm looking at it, talking to you, like I'm actually spending time looking at it. Oh, you see.
Rear brake ducts, small details, barge boards. Yes.
Oh.
Suspension, brake ducts. Yep, it's all there.
It really is packed to the gills with detail. It's just you don't. I think a lot of the issue is like people. I think people think art is disposable, but once you like spend the time to actually look at one of your favourite pieces of art, you understand. You start to appreciate. Oh, this person's actually put a lot of effort into this thing and actually cared to put these extra little details that a lot of people might not notice at first glance. You got that looks like a camera in the halo there. I think that's a camera.
Yep, that's a TV camera.
Fucking hell. Looking at it like fantastic. I love that one.
Because it's yellow, it means that it's Sergio Perez's car.
You see, you really have thought of everything.
You can't see the driver number, but there's something I actually didn't know about. It was mentioned recently, but the yellow camera is sometimes used for the second teammate, and if you have a black one, that means you're the team leader. But teams do mix it around, and that's something I actually didn't know about until this year.
Looking at it again in front, like really looking at you can really appreciate the details, and not everyone does. That's what I'm saying. That's my bit of advice. I'm going to close on this podcast. I think is don't buy NFTs.
NFTs make me sad.
Don't do that. buy a nice commission.
Oh, God, that's another topic for another time. Yep.
I think that's another issue for another episode. I think because we've already ran for quite a long time now. But looking at that now, yeah.
There's a lot to talk about.
There absolutely is. looking at it like as you're explaining the details to me, like everything like fits into place satisfying. Ah,
The Celine S7 also has details as well. You can see the steering wheel, the seat, and you also notice the steering wheel has a stripe on there as well. What other details on there which are quite nice? You also have it's a bit of an obvious one, but you have the disc brake and calipers, and you can also see like the scratches on the brake disc.
oh, stop.
Uh,
What's that thing on her shoulders? That black thing, that brace thing on her shoulder. What's that? Is that like a safety feature thing on her shoulders? That black bracket thing.
that's that's the hands device.
What's that do?
In conjunction with its seatbelt, it prevents your head from moving. Yeah,
Oh, I
it's
see.
a
Okay.
safety restraint. There's like an old on the there's an older piece where I kind of use the hand device to cover the nipples on an older version, or an older picture of Scooter that I did with the Mazda 787V.
I like that. Now I'm looking. I prefer that to the nude version now. Now that I'm looking at it, like, oh look, and you got all the advertisements on the arm and like the.
I can't pick between like the clothed and nude version. I like both equally, but sometimes I prefer the clothed one. Sometimes I prefer the nude one. It depends. Admittedly, it didn't get that much attention on Derpy Bro or Twitter, but I think the people, but I think the people who did see it, like they like, I guess like they just knew it was something special. I guess.
It is looking at the details up close and the amount of stuff that's in there is crazy. Oh, and you got like the little. You got like the little connectors underneath there, like you got like the wing with the label on it. Oh my god!
I started this like knowing it would be like my flagship piece for a while. You know, if you could only show one piece to describe what I do, like this would be it, and this would be the best example.
Now that you've explained the context and like I'm looking at it, like it makes sense. That it makes perfect sense. That's really good.
Besides making like a background for me to use, um, it's also meant to be like the best demonstration of my skills at the time. And I suppose before this one, I would have considered my flagship piece uh, to be the Fallout one for sure. And before that, it would have been the Rainbow Dash one.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it at that. I think for this recording, I'll definitely have you on for episode 2 because there's loads of things to discuss. We can only cover in like about 2 hours or whatever it is. There is a lot to get through.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sticking around for the whole thing. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Clear Vision, and I hope everyone out there has enjoyed listening. I'll have him on again on the podcast at some point for sure. Talk about all sorts of extra things that we didn't have a chance to cover in this episode, but we will cover next time. Thank you so much for everyone for listening. Take care.
See ya.